Hello and welcome back. In this section, we are going to talk more about behavioral biometric because I'm sure that it might have fueled your interest that we know about fingerprint, we know about iris scan, we know about face scan. Let's talk more about behavioral biometric. How does that work and how that help in digital payments and all other use cases? So let us find out about behavioral biometric. So again, behavioral biometric in the field of study relates to the measure of uniquely identifying and measurably pattern in human activities. So dissect this information as usually we do. We will dissect this definition. So behavioral biometrics is the field of study related to the measure of uniquely identifying. Number one. So we talked about few of the features, few of the factors you have to choose when you are deciding a biometric. So the biometric should be uniquely identified, number one, and should have measurable pattern in human activities, which means any gesture or any of the biometric which cannot be deciphered or which cannot be kind of encrypted, or it cannot be kind of transformed into a numerical number, it cannot be used as a behavioral biometric, right? Because ultimately the machines understand, say, the numbers only, and it only decipher that in terms of numbers. It could be binary, it could be anything, but it is only about numbers, or it could be an alphanumeric. If you're talking about artificial intelligence or machine learning or say image learning things, it also captures the pixels in certain numbers, right? So ultimately the machine understands numbers or alphanumeric. So that means that if you're capturing any of the biometric, for example, the way I walk or say the way I move my, say, cursor onto my laptop, that needs to be measured and that must be uniquely identifiable, and then only it is of use. And then there are different examples which we have already talked about, like keystroke dynamics, that how hard you hit on your keyboard while typing something, how softly you type on the keyboard onto your mobile phones. So those things also get managed. In fact, there are many applications. If you go to any of the Google Play Store or Apple Play Store, you will find out that there are many applications which can actually create a heat map, that where are different kind of areas of your mobile phones where you tap the most. So the moment the areas where you tap the most will become red and then green. So there will be different color coding depending on which type of areas you tap the most or you visit the most, and you will identify that your pattern is entirely different. Let's do one thing. Why don't you do one thing, that you kind of find out that application onto the mobile app store, you do that on your own smartphone, and then you also download that into your friends or your family's phone, and then you measure and identify whether there's a difference between way you access your smartphone versus your friend accesses a smartphone. There will be difference, and that's what we are talking about in behavioral biometrics. So again, it can be used for security purposes to identify customers, and as we discussed, it is tough to steal behavior, right? I mean, it is a possibility that someone can steal the biometric by 3D printing and all, but then behavior is something unique to a person, right? The way I speak, the way you speak will be different, right? It will be tough to kind of capture that, and it will take a longer period of time to kind of duplicate the way I speak or the way I talk, the way you talk, and all those things, right? So hence we talk about that behavioral biometric is tough to replicate or tough to steal. And then real life use case I want to talk about, that I was just judging a hackathon, right? And there was this company which has created a mobile application and a software. And they said that let's do one thing. Why don't you log into my mobile banking, right? So and the number and the pin code for that mobile banking app was 1234. So everything was just linked to the screen. You could see what was the percentage map. So the moment that user, the person who owned that application, banking application, they typed in the number 1234, and their success percentage or match percentage was around 97%. Then the person gave me that application and said, why don't you enter 1234 as a password? I did that. I entered 1234 as a password. Again, same mobile phone. But my success percentage was only 45%. And I was amazed that in the same application, the same numbers I am pressing, the same numbers the person is pressing, how it can be different. I was amazed that this is what we are talking about. And then I said, okay, now we established that I'm not the person which is like entering into the system. Then what do you do? Then the person said that what we do is that we inform to the banking company that here is a person which is not the customer and someone else is accessing that system. What do you want us to do? And if there are rules defined, bank may log the person out immediately, maybe. or can throw a challenge. When I say challenge, which means can ask a question, what is your mother's maiden name? Please confirm in order to proceed or to continue with the session, or what is your date of birth? Something which can only a customer can answer. So those kind of security things can be built in, but again, it is banking rule, right? So if the bank decides, no, I cannot tolerate, and someone has to log in, or I have to disable the internet banking for say next 24 hours or 48 hours, or say unless the person goes to the bank, I have to lock it. So those kind of business rules can be done, and this is a real life case which I have observed while I was judging a hackathon where people were creating applications for financial services. So this is a real life case about a company. I cannot take the name because again, it will be against the ethics of declaring that name, because the person or the company did not want to disclose that. I do not have permission to take their name, so I'm not taking the name. But if you Google, you'll find out that there are many companies which is helping financial companies to identify and stop these kind of frauds. And again, as we discussed, that the system locks out the imposter or to the person which is trying to do a fraud, or throws a challenge like date of birth, mother's maiden, or something of that sort, or just send an information to company. Totally depends on what kind of rule the company wants to fit in. So that can be done. But this is interesting. Did you capture that I was just entering the same 1, 2, 3, 4? I tried 4 or 5 times, and trust me, their success percentage was around 97%, and my success percentage improved over a period of time by entering 6 or 7 times or 4 to 5 times. It was around 52%. That's the maximum I got it, not more than that. But there's another thing which can happen. For example, let's say if a banking is very much, I would say, stringent on their security, and they say that I want that at least say 98% match should happen before a customer should enter, will be allowed to enter into internet banking. But it does not happen, right? In most of the cases, you'll find that biometrics not 100%, does not match 100% every time, right? Because this is again a behavior. For example, in a biometric, so if you can put in your fingerprint in a certain way, in the next time you put in a certain way, because you are not a machine, right? You're a human being. I mean, you do not remember the way exactly the angles and the angles and the edges you have to put on the fingerprint. It can change, right? So every system has a tolerance level. So it has to be balanced between how much you're expecting, how stringent you are going, and how loosely you're defining it. For example, the example I was taking, if the system defines that I will accept around 47% of say acceptance if someone is fine with behavior, then that means that I would be able to access someone else's bank account in that case, right? But if the system says that I can only accept 99% accuracy, then even the customer will not be able to access their own internet banking, right? So there has to be a balance between the stringent system and versus the loosely defined system. Again, there are sciences around it, that how much is the false accept rate. So again, we will talk about those concepts. What is false accept rate and what is false rejection rate? So we talk about those concepts and what is the difference, where do you create a balance and how do you create a balance. So that's all on the behavioral biometric. In the next section, let us find out what is the technology behind biometric capture and how does a biometric get captured like a fingerprint and iris scan. So see you in the next section. Till the time, take care and see you there. Thank you.